Hello and welcome to another Writerly Witterings. No. Hello, welcome to another Diabetic Witterings with me, Michael Dix, the tea drinking author who's just finished his cup. Never mind. So, what today? Well, I thought it might be interesting to just give you a little bit of an update. With my diabetes, I've had really a very good time of it for the last couple of years. My blood glucose levels have dropped. My HbA1c tests seem to be fine. I'm controlling it by avoiding most carbohydrates, but not entirely avoiding all carbohydrates. I tend to have 30 grams of oats in a porridge for my breakfast, for example, mixed with 30 grams of nuts, 30 grams of kefir yogurt, and 30 grams of blueberries or strawberries or whatever there happens to be in the house at the time. But I have cut out pastas and rice and bread. Every now and again I'll have a small slice of bread because my wife makes extremely good sourdough and I miss my bread. But it does have an impact on the blood sugars, so I try to keep that to a minimum. What I have found recently is that I can make a pizza base using wholemeal flour, and one pizza, roughly a foot in diameter, had very little impact on my blood sugars. It did send them up, but an hour and a half later they'd come right down again. So perhaps my insulin is working properly. But I thought I'd just share something which I've discovered very recently, as in the last couple of weeks, which is some new research on carbohydrates and cooking. Now, I yesterday was naughty because in the morning I had some tabbouleh. Now, tabbouleh is Bulgar wheat mixed with a whole bunch of different tomatoes, mint, cucumber and various other things, which make it rather more interesting than just a bowl of stodge. And tabbouleh is one of those things, Bulgar wheat rather, it's one of those things that has a lower glycemic index. If you're wondering about what that means, see the last video. But I found that the tabbouleh was fine. When I checked my bloods, really no impact at all, so that was good. And then I was particularly naughty and I had 2 bits of roast potato. They were lovely. First roast spuds I've had in 2.5 years, and they were absolutely delicious. And they had some impact, but not too much. It was only 2 pieces of potato, it wasn't 2 enormous spuds. But it got me thinking, I'd heard that there were different types of cooking that could have different impacts. Now, we cooked them because we haven't got a cooker right now. We had to use a slow cooker to roast the potatoes, and it took 4 or 5 hours. They were cooked very long and slow and cooked in fat, so no water. And I was doing a bit of research this morning on Diabetes UK and found a page on carbs and cooking. I'll put the link below. And it says, pasta, potatoes and rice, all carbohydrates that cause a surge in blood glucose levels. Yep, know that. For people, these can be tricky to manage and cause problems, but what if changing the way these foods were prepared and cooled meant it was less likely to happen? Now, apparently there was a television programme on BBC TV which demonstrated an experiment with Dr. Denise Robertson, who's a senior nutrition scientist at the University of Surrey and Guildford. And she showed that changing how you cook things can make them far less bad, which is interesting. So what she did was she went to the Positano Italian restaurant in Guildford, Surrey, and had a whole bunch of their staff agree to take part in the 3-day study. Every day, each of them ate 1 bowl of white pasta. Each day the pasta was prepared slightly differently. and topped with exactly the same tomato sauce. So what was different? The first day, day one, they had hot, freshly cooked pasta, spaghetti or whatever it might have been. Day two, they had pasta that had been cooked but chilled overnight. And then on day three, they had pasta that had been cooked, chilled overnight, and then reheated. Well, what is that going to do exactly? Well, what it did was it demonstrated that if you eat freshly cooked pasta, it will cause much more of a spike in your blood sugars. If you eat it when it's been chilled, it causes a slightly lower rise. But if it's been cooked, chilled, and then reheated, that causes the lowest rise of all. Bizarre. It goes into various things, but to summarize it very quickly, when you buy or when you have a starchy food such as rice, potatoes, pasta, in their solid form, take a potato, all the starches are rigidly held together and they are not easy to break down in the stomach. When you cook them, the molecules forming these starch structures are weakened significantly, and then when you eat them, it's much easier for the body to break down those starches into glucose, because basically starch is a whole string of glucose molecules linked together. If you can break down those links, then you just got neat glucose, which is readily absorbed by the body and goes straight into your blood. However, when you cool it, the structures change again. And basically it means that the starch is changed into what's called resistant starch. So you cook it, you weaken all of the structures, but then when you chill it, you strengthen them into what they call resistant starch. Basically, that means it's effectively changed quite a lot of it into more of a fibre type material. And when you eat that chilled, whatever it might be, that's going to be more difficult for your body to absorb it, because the starchy structures have been strengthened, in effect, by the cooling process. Then what happens then is when you reheat it, it does weaken some of the structures, but basically there's an awful lot more resistant starch that can't be absorbed. So basically the cold ordinary potato, pasta, whatever it might be, has got these rigid structures inside. When you heat them, they become much weaker, but if you then chill it, they strengthen again, and then re-cooking it doesn't break it down so much. So apparently, if you cook it, chill it, cook it again, it's going to be much healthier. Now, I know that there's an awful lot of people who say that you shouldn't do that with rice, for example, white rice, because there are some sort of there's something that it will do to your body. It can make you quite sick. But most of the research I've seen recently and most of the anecdotal evidence I've seen recently seems to suggest actually that's nonsense. If you have white rice, you cook it, chill it immediately, and then cook it again, that should be perfectly safe and healthy. So it got me thinking about all these different types of food. It's not just the glycemic index, because that can change depending on how you've prepared that food, which is just an indication that life as a diabetic doesn't get any flaming easier. Anyway, that's my lot. That's a little bit of a witter for today, because I've got a very busy week coming up. I've got to have some discussions with an agent. I've got to go and have meetings with some people who are very keen to record some of my books, the ones that aren't on audio currently because their contracts have expired. These people are very keen on the idea of recording them for me and then splitting the proceeds, which is appealing. So that's all good, but I've also got a Southwest Writers meeting tomorrow on Tuesday, which is the day you'll be seeing this, and I've got a meeting of the Detection Club on Wednesday, so I'll be travelling all day up to Oxford and back, and then on Thursday I've got to have the next YouTube Writerly Witterings thing going out. Plus at the same time I've got to figure out how to do a mail shot on email to let people know about my newsletters, and I've got to write a chunk of book. Just basically I haven't got a spare moment to do things right now, so I better crack on with the work. If you enjoyed this video, please do hit the like button because it helps the algorithms and it means more people are likely to see it. But even if you don't, thanks a lot for watching this far, and I'll speak to you next week. Take care. Bye.